Hello everybody, it's Riffraff Hornhelm, and I'm back again with another presentation from the Dwarven Vault. Today we're doing a monster review, and in line with what we've been doing before, this is the Gnoll. I guess that's how we Gnoll? I'm not sure. The Gnoll is another creature from the original monster manual that was used in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And once again, what I'm focusing on are the subterranean creatures that you would run into in a typical low-level, entry-level dungeon. Now, there's been a progression here as we've gone up with kobolds and goblins and orcs and hobgoblins, and the Gnoll is a slight step up from those. Well, what do I mean by that? What I mean is it's a 2-hit dice creature instead of a 1-hit dice creature. Makes a difference. You have a little bit more to go up against when you're fighting against these, and they are a little more challenging overall. Now, what's a Gnoll like? Well, a Gnoll is a 7-foot-plus tall creature that lives in tribal, rapacious bands that go out and loot and pillage and all that fun stuff. They look kind of like a giant walking hyena on 2 legs. Now, like all the rest of the creatures we've looked at in these various reviews that have been showing here on the Dwarven Vault, this is a fairly stupid creature, low intelligence, and of course, by weapon type or by attack. Typically by weapon type. And like I said earlier, they're not the kind that organizes into anything useful, so to speak. It's a band of raiders and pillagers. That's really what it comes down to. They don't like to work. Specifically says that they don't enjoy mining or work. So they're takers. They go from place to place and steal. Take through pillaging, looting, attacking, whether it's a band of travelers or merchants or other creatures. As long as they know they have the edge, they're going to take whatever they will attack, pillage, loot, all the fun stuff that Gnolls enjoy doing. Now, at 2-hit dice, it makes it a little more effective, but not very much so. They're no smarter than the rest of these. They have language abilities that allow them to get along relatively well with the orcs and goblins and other rapacious creatures that live typically in subterranean settings. Now, in the case of a Gnoll, they say about 85% of the time they live underground. But 15% of the time they'll live in an abandoned village, they'll live above ground somewhere. And why is that? Well, that's because they can handle light. They can handle light better than the orcs and goblins and the rest of these that can also live outside of a subterranean location, but it has to be somewhere where there's virtually no light. And Gnolls are a little bit different. They can manage that part of it if they have to. So does another one. We'll talk about that one in one of our other reviews. But the Gnoll is considered a slight step up because they're bigger, stronger, and they have more hit dice. Now, in real terms, like many of the other creatures that we've been talking about, they're more of a, almost like a training dummy for characters. They're not that tough to kill. Now, they do show up in bands, so yes, you have to deal with numbers of them, and the higher level characters within them will have more hit dice. There's even a Goblin King, though what he's king of, even in the book says, is whoever's willing to treat him like a king is pretty much it. Now, with all this rapaciousness and with their always out there taking, they don't live very long. In the book it says they only live about 35 years. That's a pretty short lifespan. So I guess it helps explain why they never get any smarter. And of course, this is another one of the creatures that really gets underutilized. Everybody knows orcs and goblins. Gnolls, troglodytes, some of these other ones don't pop up very often, and that's unfortunate because they tend to be a little bit more interesting as an opponent for your dungeoning party. Now, talking about this with my fellow Hornhelm colleagues and asking about the Gnoll, and everybody has pretty much the same reaction. 1.5, maybe 2. That's from the DM side. And from the player side, well, pretty much the same. In fact, more than half of the people I spoke to had never encountered a Gnoll before. Now that's on you DMs. These are good creatures to use, and it's a bit of a step up. They can often be used as bosses. And I say bosses in a supervisory role, not like in a game level boss, but in a supervisory role where they can enhance lower level creatures that are similar to them. So kind of like the Hobgoblin does with the Goblin, the Gnoll can do with Hobgoblins and Goblins. Still, it's something to keep in mind for use. They're very different. They do have a little bit more oomph. And because they're always traveling bands, really for the most part, they're always wandering around, they're very easy to interject them into a party as a wandering monster, or even as part of the plot device for various, and I use the term loosely, intelligent races that your party may run into in the course of a dungeon. Low level, not difficult to kill, look weird, tall, big, a little bit harder to deal with than some of these others that I've dealt with, but the Gnoll is really not that difficult, but one you should remember if you're plotting your dungeon. This is something that gives you a little bit of a step up. Now remember too, that because it's a 2 hit dice creature, the origination of all the creatures in here are based on the level that they would be used in within a dungeon. So a Gnoll is seen as more or less a 2nd level dungeon creature as opposed to a 1st level dungeon creature. The other 4 that we've spoken about, the Kobold, Orc, Goblin, and Hobgoblin, are all 1 hit dice creatures and are really expected to be encountered in the 1st level of a dungeon for entry level characters. So slight step up, a little bit more capable, but we're talking small degrees. That's the Gnoll. Hope you enjoyed today's presentation. If you did, please give us a like, share, consider subscribing. But most importantly, come back and see us again and learn more. Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon. And remember, dwarves rock!